Welcome back to World Numismatic Finds, where we dive into the top 5 rare UK coins that might look rusty, worn, or downright dilapidated, but could still hide surprising value. Today's spotlight shines on a rust-touched 1992 10 pence, a crisp 1996 20 pence, a well-worn 1969 5 pence, a corroded 1996 2 pence, and a time-scarred 1965 6 pence. Whether they've survived decades in pockets, drawers, or the damp British weather, these humble coins carry stories, scarcity, and, if you're lucky, a chance at big money numismatic rewards. Let's dig in and see which of these forgotten pennies could secretly pay the most. Let's get started up with the story of the 1992 UK 10 pence coin is one that continues to fascinate collectors, especially when the piece shows an aged personality such as a rusty, time-worn surface that reminds us of its long journey through British life. As we explore this coin, we are stepping into a moment in the early 1990s when the 10 pence piece still carried its original large size, a design many collectors now view with a sense of nostalgia and growing interest. This video takes you through the complete background and present-day appeal of this coin, offering a closer look at why even a rusty example can still draw curiosity in the numismatic world. The 1992 10 pence coin belongs to the era before the reduction in size that came just a few years later, meaning it represents the classic form of British decimal currency. Produced by the Royal Mint, it was issued during the time Queen Elizabeth II's portrait by Raphael Maclauff appeared on the obverse. This was an artistic era of elegance, and the coin's design reflects the refined yet bold style of British money in that decade. Holding a specimen from 1992 is like holding a piece of everyday British heritage, a reminder of how life looked and felt before many modern changes arrived. Turning the coin over from one side to the other adds to its charm. On the front, the Queen's profile faces to the right, wearing the royal diadem, a dignified symbol of the continuity and stability of the monarchy. On the reverse, you find the crowned lion, one of the most iconic and widely recognized emblems of the United Kingdom. The lion stands proud, representing national strength and tradition, and this image alone is part of why collectors continue seeking out older 10 pence pieces. Even with rust softening the shine, the design still preserves its story, giving the coin a sense of character that newly minted money simply can't replicate. What adds an even deeper layer of significance is the cultural and historic backdrop that surrounds this coin. The early 1990s were a formative time for modern Britain, a decade that saw shifting economic landscapes, social developments, and changes in national identity. A 1992 10 pence piece that has aged, gathered marks, and accumulated rust becomes more than just currency. It becomes a small witness to all those years of circulation, passing through shops, pockets, workplaces, and homes. It is precisely this lived experience that makes older British coins appealing for many collectors, especially those who enjoy items that show authentic signs of age. This pre-1992 type weighs a solid 11.31 grams, which already sets it apart from the light and compact modern 10 pence pieces. Its substantial weight gives it a satisfying presence in the hand, making it instantly recognizable as part of the earlier, larger-sized decimal issues. This feature alone is often highlighted by collectors who prefer traditional layouts and enjoy the heavier metal composition of pre-reduction coins. As far as essential details are concerned, the coin was struck in cupronickel, carries a milled edge, and bears the familiar inscription of value beneath its heraldic lion. Although it was produced in large quantities, age has naturally removed many examples from circulation. Rust, wear, and exposure have played their roles, meaning fewer intact pieces remain with each passing decade. Even a coin with heavy oxidation remains part of this shrinking pool, and that alone adds a quiet layer of desirability. When discussing scarcity and condition, it is important to remember that while this coin is not a rare issue by mintage alone, the state of the surviving examples is becoming increasingly varied. A rusty coin, although far from mint state, carries its own appeal for collectors who enjoy vintage, naturally aged pieces that demonstrate a real journey through time. Because many people have discarded worn or damaged pre-1992 10 pence coins, the surviving population is steadily decreasing, which helps support growing interest among collectors who enjoy early decimal pieces or who seek older denominations for long-term sets. Demand for the 1992 10 pence coin remains steady, especially among beginners, UK history enthusiasts, and collectors aiming to complete era-specific collections. Even rusty examples can attract buyers who appreciate the coin's age and original large format. In today's market, a typical circulated and rusty 1992 10 pence usually sells for around $1,000 to $2,000 US, depending on appearance and how heavily the oxidation has affected the details. While this is not a high-value coin, it still generates interest because of its vintage feel and its place in the timeline of British decimal changes. For anyone hoping to collect these coins profitably or preserve them properly, it is always wise to handle them carefully and avoid further exposure to moisture. Rusty coins should not be aggressively cleaned, as doing so can reduce what remains of their natural appeal. Instead, storing them in a dry environment, using coin flips or protective holders, helps slow further deterioration. Building a small group of these large-sized 10-pence pieces can be enjoyable, especially since they represent a past era of British money that is no longer seen in circulation. As we bring this exploration to a close, the 1992 10-pence coin stands out as a charming reminder of Britain's early decimal years. Even with rust and aging, it still carries cultural depth, historical value, and a strong visual identity that keeps collectors interested. Although not rare in the strictest sense, it remains a sought-after piece for those who enjoy vintage UK currency and appreciate coins that capture the passage of time. Its continued presence in the collector market shows that even modest, everyday coins have stories worth preserving. Next up, the 1996 UK 20-pence piece is one that continues to fascinate coin enthusiasts, casual hobbyists, and anyone intrigued by the hidden value that everyday change can sometimes hold. Today's video takes a deep look into this particular coin, especially when it appears in fine condition, exploring why it remains a strong point of interest in the collecting world and how it has gained an attractive position in the modern numismatic market. For many viewers, this coin will seem quite familiar, yet its background and desirability reveal far more than a simple pocket change relic. When looking back at its origins, the 1996 20-pence coin sits within a generation of British decimal coins that were introduced to strengthen and modernize the UK's currency system. The 20-pence denomination had already proven itself highly functional, but by the mid-1990s, demand for reliable and durable circulating coins was growing. The Royal Mint continued producing the seven-sided heptagonal piece with the crowned Tudor rose design, a symbol deeply tied to England's historical identity. By the time the 1996 version was released, the coin had become an established part of daily life, and yet each yearly production carries its own set of intriguing characteristics that bring collectors back again and again. Examining the front of the coin brings us to the portrait of Queen Elizabeth II, captured with an elegant profile that reflects her long-standing presence on British currency. The 1996 issue features the third definitive portrait by Raphael Maklouf, recognized for its regal detailing and the way it presents the Queen wearing the George IV state diadem. In fine condition, this side of the coin retains sharp features along the facial outline, hair details, and lettering, giving the piece an attractive clarity that collectors appreciate. Turning the coin over reveals the reverse, where the crowned Tudor rose sits in the center of the iconic heptagonal shape. This motif blends modern numismatic design with centuries of British heritage, a combination that showcases why these 20-pence pieces continue to carry meaningful value beyond their face worth. Even after decades of circulation, a fine-condition example still displays crisp edges along the petals, crown, and numerals, offering a sense of preserved craftsmanship. What gives the coin even more charm is the cultural and historical richness embedded in its imagery. The Tudor rose is one of the strongest visual markers of English history, symbolizing unity, lineage, and the blending of rival houses in centuries past. Paired with the portrait of Queen Elizabeth II, herself a monumental figure in British history, the coin becomes a small piece of artistic continuity. It bridges past and present while marking a moment in time over a quarter of a century ago. Collectors often seek coins that tell a story, and the 1996 20-pence does exactly that by representing a stable period in the UK's modern monetary evolution. The weight of the coin also plays a role in its appeal. At approximately 5 grams, the 1996 issue maintains the familiar feel that typifies British heptagonal coins, balancing compact size with sturdy composition. The cupronickel alloy used for this era ensures resistance to tarnish and wear, and when preserved well, as in fine condition, the coin retains its original metallic brightness with pleasing surface definition that enhances its desirability. Among the most interesting aspects are the small yet important facts surrounding the 1996 20-pence. While not considered an ultra-rare mintage, the year still holds steady popularity due to moderate production numbers, the use of the Maklouf portrait, and the transitional era it represents. These characteristics keep demand consistently strong. Collectors who focus on building high-quality date runs of 20-pence coins usually hunt for better-grade examples from the 1990s, and fine-condition pieces from 1996 fit neatly into that sought-after category. Looking at rarity, the coin is not one that vanished from circulation suddenly, yet fine examples are increasingly difficult to find as the decades advance. Circulation naturally causes scratches, dulling, and edge wear, So a 1996 coin that still holds clean surfaces and well-preserved detail becomes significantly more attractive to numismatists. This combination of age, condition, and the timeless design helps it achieve a higher level of interest than a typical circulated piece. In terms of market value today, the appeal of a fine-condition 1996 20 pence has grown steadily. While not on the extreme end of rare British coin prices, a clean and appealing example is known to bring in anything from $50 to $60 depending on its sharpness, mint luster, and overall eye appeal. The growing attention around older decimal coins has also increased market confidence, giving collectors a sense of rising potential in years to come, which adds to the positive demand surrounding well-preserved pieces from this era. Collectors who wish to acquire or keep such a coin should consider a few beneficial habits. Storing it properly, avoiding unnecessary handling, and protecting it from further wear will help maintain or even enhance its value over time. Paying attention to surface shine, edge sharpness, and clarity of lettering can help determine which examples stand out from the rest. As demand for neat, well-kept decimal coins continues to grow, thoughtful preservation becomes a powerful advantage. As we draw to a close, the 1996 UK 20 pence coin proves that even modern decimal pieces can hold a surprising blend of history, art, and collector interest. A fine condition example has charm, resilience, and a quiet desirability that positions it as a rewarding addition to any collection. Whether discovered in a forgotten jar of change or acquired through dedicated searching, this coin stands as a reminder that everyday currency can carry unexpected stories and rising potential. It makes for an engaging treasure in the world of numismatics, and its steady demand ensures it remains a delightful find for anyone passionate about British coinage. At number 3, the UK 5 pence coin from 1969, a piece that holds far more charm and intrigue than its modest face value might suggest. This particular coin, even in a worn condition, carries with it a sense of early decimalization history that still captures the attention of coin collectors across the world. It represents a moment of national change, a shift from the old system of pounds, shillings, and pence into the decimal era that shaped the currency we know today. As a result, every 1969 5 pence coin feels like a small artifact from a turning point in British monetary history, offering collectors not just a coin, but a snapshot of the nation's transition. Looking into its background, the 5p coin of 1969 was part of the very first decimal coins to be issued in the United Kingdom, introduced before full decimalization took effect in 1971. It was designed to replace the old 1 shilling coin, but kept the same size, meaning people could use both interchangeably for a short period. This makes the 1969 issue particularly interesting because it stood at the intersection of two systems and bridged two eras. Many people back then were still adjusting to the new designs and denominations, which means these early decimal coins were heavily used in everyday life, giving them the worn appearances many collectors encounter today. That natural circulation where tells a story of pocket change passing through shops, buses, and households during Britain's largest currency changeover of the century. When presenting the head and tail of the coin, the portrait on the obverse features Queen Elizabeth II, designed by Arnold Machin, an image that became one of the most recognizable depictions of the monarch during the early decimal years. Despite wear, the elegance of the portrait can usually still be identified, offering that classic, regal aesthetic collectors appreciate. The reverse displays the crowned thistle, symbolizing Scotland and serving as a reminder of the unity of the four nations through their representation in British coinage. Even when worn, the outline of the thistle remains an iconic marker of its identity and appeals to those who cherish symbolic and historical motifs within their collection. This coin also carries cultural and historical significance that stretches beyond its small denomination. Decimalization was not merely a financial reform, it was a major cultural shift that required the public to adapt to new values, shapes, and meanings within their currency. Coins like the 1969 5 pence became the everyday tools of this learning process, so they now serve as reminders of how society embraced modernization. Collectors who value the cultural story behind coins often seek early decimal issues for this reason, and the 1969 5p stands out as one of the most historically meaningful pieces from that transition period. In terms of specifications, the coin weighs 5.65 grams and is struck in cupronickel, giving it durability and that distinctive silver tone that withstands decades of handling. Even when worn, it retains its sturdy build, and many such examples remain fully readable despite their age. Knowing these details also helps enthusiasts differentiate genuine early decimal pieces from later varieties, as weight and metal composition changed in later years. Several key facts contribute to the interest surrounding this coin. It was one of the first decimal coins ever minted for circulation, it carries the widely admired Machin portrait, and it holds a direct connection to the replacement of the shilling. Although it was produced in large quantities, Its desirability comes less from rarity and more from historical importance and collector preference for first-issue decimal coins. In worn condition, it is not considered rare in the traditional sense, yet early decimal pieces have seen growing appreciation as more collectors focus on assembling complete decimal-era sets. The condition of the coin naturally plays a role in determining value, and a worn 1969 5p will show flattening to the portrait and thistle along with general surface dulling. While this wear lowers value compared to higher-grade examples, it also reflects genuine circulation history that many collectors enjoy. The demand for such coins remains steady, particularly among beginners building their first decimal collections and enthusiasts who enjoy affordable historic pieces that still hold significance. Turning to its present-day market performance, a worn 1969 5 pence generally sells for a modest amount, usually around the UK 5 pence coin from 1969, a piece that holds far more charm and intrigue than its modest face value might suggest. This particular coin, even in a worn condition, carries with it a sense of early decimalization history that still captures the attention of coin collectors across the world. It represents a moment of national change, a shift from the old system of pounds, shillings, and pence into the decimal era that shaped the currency we know today. As a result, every 1969 5 pence coin feels like a small artifact from a turning point in British monetary history, offering collectors not just a coin, but a snapshot of the nation's transition. In conclusion, the UK 5 pence coin from 1969, even in worn condition, remains a charming and historically important piece that continues to attract collectors thanks to its role in the birth of the decimal era. Its elegant design, strong cultural ties, and accessible market value make it a wonderful coin to highlight in any collection, while its ongoing popularity demonstrates how even the smallest denominations can carry compelling stories. By holding a coin like this, collectors connect directly with the moment Britain stepped into a new monetary age, bringing with it a blend of nostalgia, national pride, and numismatic curiosity. To $3 in today's market, depending on visibility of design details and overall condition. Although the value is not high, the interest level remains strong, and demand continues to rise as more collectors hunt for early decimalization coins, increasing the sense of desirability even for circulated examples. Its worth lies not only in financial terms but in historical richness, making it a satisfying addition for anyone looking to strengthen their UK collection without needing a large investment. At number 4, we turn our attention to a 1996 2p example found in corroded condition, exploring the story behind it, its cultural relevance, its technical specifications, and why it still manages to attract interest among collectors across the world. Even a worn or corroded coin can hold significance, and sometimes that journey of survival through pockets, purses, and decades of circulation becomes part of what makes a piece worth discussing. The story of this coin begins with its origin in the era of decimalization. By 1996, the UK's modern currency system had already been well established for a quarter of a century, and the copper-plated steel 2 pence was a familiar sight in everyday life. The Royal Mint continued to refine production techniques, ensuring that coins remained durable, recognizable, and ready to withstand years of constant handling. The 1996 issue forms part of this lineage, a representation of Britain's evolving coinage during the mid-1990s, a time defined by economic change, modernization, and a shift towards more efficient manufacturing in the minting world. When examining a 1996 2p closely, even in corroded condition, the familiar designs still manage to reveal themselves. On the obverse sits the portrait of Queen Elizabeth II, sculpted by Raphael Maklouf, a design used from 1985 to 1997. Her elegant and regal depiction became one of the best-known portrayals on British coins during that era, instantly identifiable to anyone who handled change throughout the late 20th century. On the reverse, the classic badge of the Prince of Wales occupies the centre, consisting of the ostrich feathers rising from a coronet, accompanied by the motto ICHDN, meaning I serve. This traditional emblem has been part of British heraldry for centuries, and its presence on the 2p coin connects a small everyday object with a much deeper historical legacy of monarchy and tradition. Even as corrosion may soften the edges or darken the metal, these iconic elements remain the core identity of the coin. Beyond the design, the weight and structure of the coin tell a story of industrial precision. The 1996 version of the 2 pence coin weighs 7.12 grams and is composed primarily of copper-plated steel, part of the Royal Mint's transition from the previous bronze alloy. This subtle change in metal composition marked an important moment in UK coinage, as the Mint sought to balance durability with economic efficiency. Over time, the steel core can react with environmental conditions, which explains why some examples, particularly those lost outdoors or stored in damp environments, develop corrosion. While corrosion does impact condition, it also reminds collectors that each coin has lived a long life of circulation before reaching their hands. Key facts surrounding the 1996 2p issue make it a common circulation coin, yet one still appreciated for completing year runs or for studying the metal variations introduced during the decade. Though millions were minted, the condition of surviving pieces varies significantly, and corroded examples often illustrate how different storage environments influence metal degradation. Some collectors enjoy keeping such pieces as comparison specimens, using them to showcase the effects of oxidation on copper-plated steel. The value of coins like these tends to rely heavily on condition, but their historical context remains the same regardless of surface wear. When it comes to rarity and collector demand, the 1996 2p is not categorized as a rare coin, but interest still exists, especially for educational collections, beginners building complete year sets, and hobbyists who enjoy examining environmental effects on coins. Corroded examples are not considered premium finds, yet they hold their own charm for those who appreciate the story of a coin rather than its shine. Demand often comes from collectors who enjoy filling gaps in date sequences or from viewers who follow numismatic discoveries through everyday change. In terms of today's market value, a corroded 1996 2p typically sells for around $2,500 to $3,500 in the US market, depending on appearance and the level of corrosion. While it does not command high prices, the value lies in the satisfaction of preserving a piece of modern British currency history, an item that once passed through shops, travelled in purses, and contributed to countless small transactions before ending up in a collection. Collectors seeking to preserve these coins can benefit from simple good practices. Handling the coin minimally, ensuring it is kept in a dry protective environment, and avoiding aggressive cleaning methods helps maintain what remains of its detail. Many enthusiasts prefer storing even corroded examples in small plastic flips or folders designed for long-term protection. As always, keeping the coin as natural as possible without altering the original metal is the most respectful approach for numismatic preservation. As we bring our exploration to a close, the 1996 UK 2p coin in corroded condition proves that not every piece needs to be rare or pristine to have a story worth telling. Sometimes the value lies in its journey, its connection to a particular period, and its place within the broader narrative of British currency. Coins like these remind us that collecting is not only about chasing high-priced rarities, it is also about appreciating the everyday pieces that shape the lives and transactions of millions. Whether you are a long-time numismatist or someone just discovering the richness of British coinage, the 1996 2p stands as a small yet meaningful fragment of modern UK monetary history. At last and final, the 1965 6p, a small but deeply symbolic coin that continues to capture the imagination of collectors across the world. Despite the example we're discussing being in a dilapidated state, there is something uniquely alluring about a coin that has survived decades of circulation, handling, pockets, purses, and history. Its worn surfaces almost act as a silent storyteller, reminding us of the countless hands, moments, and memories it may have passed through. This is a coin that still enjoys enthusiastic attention in numismatic circles, with seasoned collectors revisiting it and newer collectors discovering it for the very first time. To appreciate the 1965 6p fully, it helps to step back into its historical background. This coin was minted during the reign of Queen Elizabeth II, at a time when Britain was on the cusp of immense change leading into the decimalization of 1971. It represents a final era of the traditional pre-decimal system and holds a sense of cultural continuity. The Royal Mint produced these coins with a dedication to quality and precision, and references across databases such as Ucoin and Numista highlight how the 1965 issue sits among the most recognized of the late-period 6p denominations. For many collectors, this coin is not just a monetary artifact but a little relic of British heritage, a piece of everyday life in the mid-1960s preserved in metal. When examining the coin in hand, the portrait side, traditionally referred to as the head, displays the youthful effigy of Queen Elizabeth II by Mary Gillick, an iconic design admired for its simplicity and elegance. Even when worn or damaged, this portrait remains a reassuring symbol of mid-20th century British identity. The reverse, or the tail, features the charming crowned Tudor rose, flanked by a thistle and a shamrock, an artistic nod to unity within the nations of the United Kingdom. The engraving remains deeply appreciated, and even in dilapidated examples the design is often still detectable, lending the coin a rustic and almost archaeological appeal to certain collectors. Culturally and historically, the 6p carries far more weight than its small size suggests. For generations, it was part of British traditions, especially around weddings, where the famous phrase, "something old, something new, something borrowed, something blue, and a 6p in her shoe," was commonly practiced. This cultural significance extends its desirability even to collectors who focus on folklore and customs. The 1965 issue, being one of the final series before the denomination's withdrawal, occupies a meaningful place in this wider story of British social practices, making it a frequently discussed coin in enthusiast communities and catalogues like uCoin and Numista. From a technical standpoint, the 1965 sixpence weighs approximately 2.83 grams and is composed of cupronickel, the alloy that replaced silver in the early 1940s. Although it may not contain precious metal, its charm and collectability come from design heritage, historic context, and nostalgic appeal. Many Royal Mint followers admire this period of coinage for its durability and classical British styling. The modest weight gives it a pleasant, familiar feel in the hand, and collectors often note how recognizable a sixpence is even among mixed groups of old coins. Key information about the 1965 mintage reveals that it was produced in high numbers, meaning it is not considered scarce in general circulation grades. Yet the intriguing part of coin collecting is that desirability doesn't depend solely on rarity. Condition, eye appeal, connection to history, and niche popularity all play crucial roles. While a dilapidated example naturally sits at the lower end of the grading scale, many collectors still enjoy owning them for historical study, album completion, or sentimental curation. A heavily worn coin offers character and authenticity that pristine examples simply cannot replicate. With regard to today's market behavior, even worn or dilapidated sixpence coins from 1965 attract steady interest, particularly from overseas collectors who value British pre-decimal issues. In the current coin market, such a circulated and damaged piece typically sells for around $1,000 to $2,000, depending on the degree of deterioration and the buyer's personal interest. While it isn't a high-value piece in monetary terms, its consistent demand shows that the sixpence holds a strong place within entry-level collecting, heritage collections, and themed displays. It is a coin people love to own, and its popularity keeps it active in the low-value but high-interest sector of the numismatic trade. Collectors who seek to acquire or preserve examples often benefit from simple but effective advice. Even heavily worn coins should be stored properly to prevent further corrosion or structural breakdown. Handling them minimally, keeping them in dry environments, and using acid-free holders will help maintain the remaining detail. New collectors are also encouraged to learn how to assess wear patterns and compare their coins with reference images from sources like uCoin and Numista to better understand grading and authenticity. The 1965 sixpence is a brilliant starter coin because it teaches so much about design, history, and the transition from pre-decimal to modern British currency. Bringing everything together, the 1965 sixpence remains a delightful and underrated piece of British numismatic history, even in rough or dilapidated condition. Its beauty lies not only in its design but in its connection to a significant era, its cultural traditions, and the warm nostalgia it evokes. Whether held as part of a growing collection, used for educational reference, or appreciated simply as a charming relic of British heritage, this small coin continues to leave a big impression. It stands as a testament to how even the most worn and humble pieces can carry stories worth preserving, discussing, and celebrating.